Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating piece of source material, the Living Word, 10 Lessons of Divine Transformation. Now, whether you look at this purely as history or as a spiritual guidebook, this text offers a pretty compelling, heavily structured framework for personal change that has literally shaped generations. So let's explore exactly what these teachings are and how they claim to completely rewrite a person's life.
Okay, let's dive into this. We've actually distilled these 10 teachings into a cohesive 5-part arc of transformation. We're going to start with the foundation, move up to the upward relationship, look outward to the outward action, reflect inward for the inward posture, and then finally, we'll reach the culmination of the journey. Starting us off is Section 1, the foundation, a living relationship. To really understand this framework, you have to look at how the source text sets up a critical contrast right from the jump: standard religion versus a living relationship. The material argues that adhering to these teachings, well, it isn't just about going through the religious motions or following some static, dusty set of rules. Instead, it asserts that following Jesus is meant to be this incredibly dynamic, active connection that transforms literally every single part of a person's life. It presents him not just as a historical figure stuck in the past, but as an active bringer of truth who's meant to cross generations. Building on that living relationship, the text completely upends our conventional ideas of power. I mean, according to the source, true greatness isn't about wealth or conquest or status. It's actually found in love. And true strength? It's not physical power or intense self-reliance. It's trusting God. These two radical, counter-cultural definitions form the absolute bedrock for the whole shebang.
And that brings us to Section 2, the upward relationship, loving and trusting God. Here the source presents its primary anchor. Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. It's a demand for total, all-encompassing devotion. The implication here is stark, right? Without this complete internal commitment of your heart, your soul, and your mind, the rest of the framework kind of just falls apart.
And this brilliantly illustrates where the text promises a sort of spiritual alchemy. When this vertical alignment actually happens, a fundamental internal shift follows. The text claims that the noise and confusion in your life transform directly into profound peace, and this overwhelming sense of emptiness is actively replaced by purpose. It's a direct cause and effect relationship. Putting this upward relationship first yields deep internal clarity.
Synthesizing this with the text's teachings on faith, we actually see a direct antidote to human anxiety, which, is something deeply relevant to all of us today. The instructions are incredibly clear. Seek God's kingdom before everything else and trust Him completely with your daily needs. The source uses this beautiful metaphor that faith, even if it's as small as a tiny seed, can move mountains. Because of this, it offers the comforting promise that you don't need to fear tomorrow because you're already provided for.
Now, this brings us to a really vital transition point. We've established this intense, internal, upward faith. But how does that faith translate to our treatment of others? Like, if the upward relationship is secure, what exactly happens on the horizontal plane? Let's pivot from internal faith to external social dynamics and see how the source material answers this. Section 3 is the outward action, radical compassion. By grouping lessons 2, 6, and 9, the text's unified call for selfless action becomes incredibly clear. It demands you love others exactly as you wish to be loved. It explicitly commands you to drop all judgment and actively choose mercy instead. On top of that, it instructs you to give quietly, expecting absolutely nothing in return, explicitly rejecting any performative, public displays of piety or power. True greatness, it argues, is found in the simple act of serving others. Then there's the third lesson, which carries immense emotional weight. Forgive again and again, just as heaven forgives you. The text doesn't let you off the hook with a simple one-time apology. No, it places a heavy, binding emphasis on continuous redemption and ongoing relational harmony between people, perfectly mirroring the boundless forgiveness it claims heaven offers to the individual. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the 8th lesson completely upends natural human instinct. Look, it's relatively easy to be kind to your friends, but the text demands you love even your enemies. When faced with hatred, the mandatory response, according to the source, is kindness. It's a huge departure from our standard urge to retaliate, pushing the very concept of compassion to its absolute, wildest limits.
Section 4 is the inward posture, humility and light.
To sustain those radical outward actions we just talked about, the source says certain quiet character traits are absolutely required. Here we see a deep emphasis on an authentic, private inner life.
The text instructs the reader to walk in humility, noting the paradox that in this framework, the humble are actually the great ones. It advises praying in secret, beautifully noting that the Father hears even silent tears. This proves that the source values genuine, intimate connection far over loud public displays of faith.
And this leads directly to a powerful philosophical mandate: be the light in a dark world. To be a light means to actively guide the lost and bring healing to the broken. It's a call to take that quiet inner humility and that radical outward compassion and use them as a brilliant beacon to actively combat the darkness around you.
Finally, Section 5, the culmination, a life forever changed.
So the crucial point is this. The text lays out a very clear progressive sequence. First, you walk with Jesus. Second, you remain in him. Third, as a direct result, you bear lasting fruit, meaning your life produces tangible positive outcomes. And fourth, you experience lasting peace, freedom, and eternal life. The bold assertion here is that this isn't just some moral checklist. It's a sequential journey that permanently rewrites a life.
And this brings us to the core challenge of the source material. We've explored the historical depth of these 10 lessons, the radical demands of their compassion, and the promise of profound peace. But ultimately, the text leaves its readers with a deeply personal, provocative question to ponder. Will you let the living word transform you?